You think you're still broken, but what if you've already started healing and just haven't noticed? Healing doesn't always look like the movies. It's not all sunshine after the storm or dramatic moments of realization. Sometimes it's quiet. It's in the little things you barely notice. The way you breathe easier when you remember something that once made your chest tighten, or how you scroll past someone's name without your heart racing anymore. It's not loud. It's subtle. It's happening in the background while you keep telling yourself you're not okay yet. Maybe you've been waiting for some big moment. The day you wake up and feel completely free from the weight that once crushed you. But healing doesn't announce itself like that. It slips in softly, piece by piece, through your choices, your silence, your restraint. It's in how you handle situations now compared to before. It's how you've learned to pause instead of react, to walk away instead of argue, to breathe instead of break. You've mistaken calm for numbness. But what if it's peace? You see, sometimes you've grown so much that you can't even recognize it. You think the progress doesn't count because you're still hurting a little. But that's not failure, that's human. Healing doesn't erase the pain. It teaches you to live differently with it. You've already come farther than you think. You just haven't taken the time to notice the quiet ways you've changed. So before you decide you're still broken, look closer. The version of you standing here today, they've survived things the old you couldn't imagine. Maybe healing isn't something you wait for. Maybe it's something you're already living, one silent victory at a time. The quiet kind of healing isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or some grand announcement. Most of the time, it moves in silence. Slow, patient, almost invisible. You don't always see it happening, but it's there, reshaping you quietly, piece by piece. It's not about smiling all the time or pretending the pain never existed. It's about learning to live with what once hurt you, without letting it define who you are anymore. You see, real healing doesn't demand attention. It hides in your smallest victories. The moments you didn't break down when you easily could have, the times you stayed calm instead of lashing out, the days you kept going even when no one was watching. It's in the way you've started protecting your peace, even if that means walking away from things that once felt impossible to let go of. Healing rarely looks like progress, but it always feels like relief. And maybe that's what's been confusing you. You think because you still have sad days you haven't healed. But the truth is, even the strongest hearts ache sometimes. Healing doesn't erase emotion, it just changes your relationship with it. You can feel pain and still be growing. You can cry and still be healing. You can miss what hurt you and still be moving on. By the end of this video, you'll start to see yourself differently. You'll recognize that healing isn't a finish line you cross. It's a journey you've already been walking without realizing it. You've been healing in the way you've been thinking, reacting, and choosing lately. And when you look closer, you'll see signs that you're no longer who you used to be. Because the truth is, you've already come farther than you think. And once you see that, once you really feel it, you'll stop saying, I'm not okay yet. And start saying, I'm becoming okay, finally. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we're going to uncover the quiet proof that your healing has already begun. Transition into signs, flow in naturally. You know, healing doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. It's not this grand, dramatic moment where you wake up one day and everything feels perfect. Most of the time, it's quiet. It's subtle. It's in the little moments you don't even notice. Until one day, you catch yourself reacting differently. You realize the things that used to break you don't have the same power anymore. The silence that once felt heavy now feels peaceful. That's healing, not loud, but steady, like a sunrise you didn't see coming. And maybe you've been so busy chasing better that you haven't realized just how far you've come. You think because you still have off days or moments of doubt, you haven't grown. But healing isn't about perfection. It's about transformation. It's when your pain stops defining you and starts teaching you. It's when you stop needing closure from others because you've given it to yourself. That quiet strength you've developed. That's proof of progress, even if you can't always feel it. So take a breath. Let this moment be a mirror. Because healing rarely looks the way we imagine it. It's not about pretending you're fine. It's about being real enough to admit when you're not and still choosing peace anyway. You've learned to protect your energy, to walk away when something isn't for you, to forgive without needing an apology. Those are not small things. Those are milestones that often go unseen. You might not give yourself enough credit, but you deserve it. Every boundary you've set, every time you chose silence over reaction, every time you showed up for yourself, those are the quiet victories that define healing. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the signs you've healed more than you think. The moments that prove your growth, even when you still feel uncertain. Because healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you've always been, without the pain distorting your view. And maybe, just maybe, you're already closer to peace than you realize. You don't react the same way anymore. There was a time when the smallest thing could ruin your entire day. A text left unread, a harsh word, a reminder of the past. It would all hit you like a wave you couldn't fight against. But now something's changed. You notice it in those quiet moments when you could have lost control. But didn't. You still feel things, of course you're human. But you no longer let every emotion drag you back into chaos. That's growth. That's healing. You don't chase every argument anymore. You don't need to prove every point or defend yourself to everyone who misunderstands you. You've learned that peace is more valuable than being right. You've learned that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means wisdom. Where you once reacted with fire, now you respond with calm. You pause before speaking. You think before reacting. You walk away before it gets ugly. That's not indifference, that's control. And maybe you don't give yourself enough credit for that. Because emotional regulation isn't something that just happens overnight. It's something you build one choice at a time. Every time you decide not to respond in anger, every time you take a breath instead of starting a fight, every time you choose understanding over judgment, that's healing. You've outgrown the version of yourself that thought being loud meant being strong. You've realized that real strength is being able to feel everything without letting it own you. You still have emotions, but they no longer rule your world. You've stopped letting your triggers define how your day goes. And that right there is one of the clearest signs you've healed more than you realize. You're not emotionless. You're just in charge of your emotions now. You've learned the difference between reacting to pain and responding with clarity. And even if no one notices it, even if it feels small, it's one of the biggest transformations you'll ever experience. Because peace after chaos is proof that you've grown. You've stopped needing closure. There was a time when unanswered questions kept you awake at night. You replayed conversations, searched for hidden meanings, and tried to make sense of why things ended the way they did. You wanted explanations, apologies, and clarity. You thought that if you could just understand why, you'd finally be able to move on. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. You stopped chasing closure. And that's when real healing began. Because the truth is, not every story comes with a final chapter. Some people leave without saying goodbye. Some moments never make sense. And some endings just happen quietly, without warning, without reason. But now you've learned to accept that. You've stopped trying to fix what was never yours to repair. You've stopped needing people to admit they were wrong, just so you could feel right. You've realized that closure doesn't always come from them. Sometimes it comes from you deciding it's time to let go. It's a kind of peace that doesn't demand explanation. You've reached a point where you can say, "It hurt, but it taught me." You don't need to reopen wounds just to understand them. You trust that not knowing everything doesn't mean you failed. It just means you've grown. Because the moment you stop chasing answers is the moment you start finding peace. You see, closure isn't about getting the truth. It's about making peace with the truth you already have. You've learned that healing isn't waiting for someone else to make it right. It's realizing you can move forward even if they never do. You don't need every piece of the puzzle anymore. You're content with what you've learned, and you're okay with what's missing. That's emotional maturity. That's healing. When you stop demanding endings to make sense of your pain, you start writing new beginnings for yourself. And that quiet acceptance, that calm surrender, it's not weakness, it's strength. It's you finally choosing peace over proof. And that's one of the clearest signs that you've healed more than you realize. You're comfortable being alone. There was a time when silence felt heavy, when being alone meant being abandoned. You used to fill every quiet moment with noise. People, distractions, anything to avoid sitting with yourself. But now something's different. The solitude that once felt like loneliness has started to feel like peace. You no longer see your own company as a punishment. You see it as a privilege. You've learned that being alone doesn't mean you're unloved. It means you've reached a place where your own presence feels enough. You don't chase constant connection anymore, because you're not trying to escape yourself. You've made peace with your thoughts, with your past, with the quiet parts of your heart that used to ache for someone else to fill them. And that's powerful, because when you can sit with yourself and feel safe, you've truly healed. You've discovered the beauty in simple moments. Morning coffee with your own thoughts. Peaceful walks without needing to talk. Music that feels like a conversation between you and your soul. You've learned how to recharge alone instead of fearing the stillness. You're not looking for validation in someone else's presence, because you found comfort in your own. It doesn't mean you've given up on people or love. It just means you no longer depend on them to feel whole. You can enjoy company without needing it to define you. You can give love without losing yourself in it. That's the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness drains you, solitude refills you. And when you reach that point, where being alone feels natural instead of empty, that's one of the strongest signs of healing. Because it shows you've stopped running from yourself. You've stopped treating your own heart like a stranger. You've learned to be your own safe place. Now, the quiet doesn't scare you. It soothes you. The silence doesn't feel like a void. It feels like home. You've become your own peace, your own comfort, your own company. And that's when you know you're not just surviving anymore. You're finally at peace with who you are. You're no longer chasing people or validation. There was a time when you measured your worth by how others saw you. You'd bend yourself just to fit into someone else's idea of acceptable. You'd overthink every word, every silence, wondering if you were enough. You wanted to be chosen, noticed, understood, even if it meant losing pieces of yourself in the process. But now, you don't chase anymore. You've stopped begging for space in places that never valued your presence. You've realized that the people meant for you will never need convincing. You no longer chase validation because you've learned that approval is temporary, but self-worth is permanent. You've stopped needing everyone to like you because you finally like yourself. You've learned that not being invited doesn't mean you're not worthy. It just means your energy no longer fits where you've outgrown. You don't explain your boundaries, your silence, or your distance to people who never care to understand. You've accepted that not everyone deserves access to you. And that's not arrogance. That's self-respect. You've also learned the quiet power of not reacting. When someone pulls away, you don't chase them to prove your value. You let them go because you trust what's meant for you won't require you to beg for it. You've stopped seeking validation in attention and started finding it in authenticity. You're not trying to be understood anymore. You're just being yourself fully and freely. That shift from chasing to choosing, that's healing. You no longer crave validation because you've built something stronger, self-trust. You know your intentions, your worth, your effort. You don't need constant reassurance to feel seen. You've learned that peace is better than people pleasing, and that silence is better than seeking approval that never lasts. And maybe the most beautiful part, you don't even realize how strong that makes you. You've stopped running after love, attention, and understanding because you've finally realized the only person who truly needed to believe in you was you. And now that you do, you've already won. Because real healing begins the moment you stop chasing people and start choosing yourself. You forgive without needing an apology. There was a time when forgiveness felt impossible. You wanted them to understand how much they hurt you, to feel even a fraction of the pain you carried. You wanted an apology, an explanation, something to make the weight of it all make sense. But over time, you realized something powerful, waiting for an apology, kept you tied to the same pain you were trying to escape. And that's when forgiveness started to look different. Now, forgiveness isn't about saying what they did was okay. It's about saying, I'm done letting it control me. You've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means release. It's the quiet decision to stop replaying what can't be changed. It's you choosing peace over resentment, growth over grudges. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve to be free. You've noticed that the bitterness doesn't live in you the way it used to. The memories are still there, but they no longer sting the same. You can think about what happened without that knot in your chest. That's not weakness. That's healing. You've stopped needing them to admit their wrongs because their silence no longer defines your closure. You found your own. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's remembering without rage. It's seeing the lesson, not the wound. It's saying, you hurt me, but you no longer have power over me. That's the kind of strength that doesn't shout. It radiates quietly through peace of mind. You've realized that holding on to anger only burns you from the inside, and letting go doesn't make you soft. It makes you wise. And maybe the most beautiful part is that you didn't even plan it. The anger just faded naturally as your heart started healing. You stopped wishing for payback and started wishing for peace. You stopped reliving the past because the present finally feels safe. That's forgiveness. Not forced, not faked, but born from growth. So when you can look at the people who broke you and no longer feel hate, that's not weakness. That's freedom. That's the kind of quiet healing that proves you've grown more than you ever realized. You're not afraid of starting over. There was a time when the idea of starting over terrified you. The thought of losing what you built, what you loved, what you dreamed of. It used to make your heart sink. You clung to what was familiar, even when it was hurting you, because at least it was something you knew. But somewhere along your journey, that fear began to fade. You stopped seeing endings as failures and started seeing them as beginnings. You stopped asking, what if I lose everything? And started whispering, what if I find myself again? Now, starting over doesn't scare you. It excites you. Because you've learned that everything you lost taught you something you needed to know. Every ending prepared you for something new. You trust yourself now, not the outcome. You know that no matter what happens, you'll find a way through it. Because you already have before. You've survived the worst days, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, the chaos. And each time you came out stronger, softer, wiser. You've learned that peace isn't found in holding on. It's found in letting go. You no longer cling to people, places, or plans just because you're afraid of starting again. You've learned to rebuild with patience, to trust the timing of your life. You don't rush anymore, you flow. You don't chase certainty, you create it from within. And maybe that's what real healing looks like. Trusting yourself enough to begin again, even after everything fell apart. You no longer need guarantees because you've become your own safety net. You've learned that you can lose everything and still not lose yourself. That's strength. That's growth. So now when life shifts unexpectedly, you don't panic. You don't ask, why me? You say, try me. Because deep down, you know you've got this. You've faced endings and found rebirth. You've faced pain and found purpose. And that quiet confidence you carry now, that's proof that you've healed more than you realize. Starting over isn't your fear anymore. It's your superpower. The truth about healing isn't when nothing hurts anymore. It's when the pain no longer controls who you are. It's when you can look at everything that broke you and say, yes, it hurt, but it doesn't define me anymore. Healing isn't a finish line. It's a quiet acceptance that life will always have cracks, but those cracks don't make you less whole. They make you real. You see, the goal was never to erase the past. It was to make peace with it. To understand that your story isn't ruined just because it has messy chapters. Every scar, every heartbreak, every sleepless night, they all shaped you into someone stronger, softer, wiser. You've learned how to stand without needing anyone to hold you up. You've learned how to breathe through pain without letting it consume you. That's what healing looks like. Not perfect, but peaceful. And maybe you still have moments where it stings. That's okay. Healing doesn't mean you never feel the ache again. It means the ache no longer owns your heart. It means you can visit your past without living there. It means you can forgive yourself for what you didn't know back then, for how long it took, for the mistakes you made while you were trying to survive. You've grown in ways you can't even see yet. The fact that you can think about your pain and not crumble, that's healing. The fact that you can speak about what hurt you and not tremble, that's healing. The fact that you can love again, trust again, try again, that's healing. Healing doesn't shout, it whispers. It's not in the loud victories, but in the quiet peace that follows the storm. And maybe, just maybe, you don't give yourself enough credit for that. Because you're not the same person who once broke. You're the person who picked up the pieces and kept going. So when you think of healing, don't look for perfection, look for peace. Because that calm you feel now, that strength you've earned, that is healing. You've already become everything your old pain thought you'd never be. A moment of reflection, so tell me, which of these signs hit you the hardest? Or maybe which one are you still working on? Take a second to think about it. Not just with your mind, but with your heart. Because healing isn't something we rush through. It's something we grow through, slowly, painfully, beautifully. Maybe you saw yourself in one of these signs. Maybe you realized you've come farther than you ever gave yourself credit for. Or maybe you realize that you're just beginning, and that's perfectly okay too. Healing doesn't follow a straight line. Some days you'll feel strong and steady. Other days you'll feel like you're right back where you started. But you're not. Every time you choose to pause instead of react, to stay calm instead of breaking down, to keep going when it would be easier to give up, you're healing. Even when it doesn't look like progress, it is. So I want you to really think, which part of your healing journey surprised you the most? Was it learning to be alone without feeling lonely? Was it forgiving without getting closure? Was it realizing that your peace matters more than being understood? Whatever it is, let yourself acknowledge it. You deserve to recognize your growth, because it didn't happen overnight. It happened through sleepless nights, silent tears, and countless moments of strength no one saw but you. Share it in the comments, not for attention, but for connection. Because someone out there is still in the middle of their storm, and your words might remind them that healing is possible. That peace is coming, that they're not behind, they're becoming. And if you're still figuring it all out, that's okay. Healing isn't about having it all together. It's about learning to trust that you will, eventually. So go ahead, tell me which sign felt the most real to you. I'm listening, and trust me, your healing story matters more than you think. And if you're finally ready to stop questioning your healing and start owning your peace, hit subscribe. Because this is where growth becomes clarity. This space isn't about pretending to have it all figured out. It's about learning, unlearning, and becoming who you were always meant to be, one honest moment at a time. Every video here is a reminder that you're not broken, you're rebuilding. You're not behind, you're evolving. Think of this as your safe corner of the internet, a place where you can breathe, reflect, and remind yourself that progress doesn't have to be perfect to be real. Every step you've taken, even the messy ones, have brought you here. And that means something. It means you care enough to grow, to heal, to understand yourself better. That's powerful. So if something in this video spoke to you, if it made you pause, reflect, or even just feel seen, then stay. Because healing doesn't happen alone. It happens when you surround yourself with voices that remind you of your strength, your worth, and your ability to rise again. Subscribe, not just for another video, but for a shift in the way you see yourself, in the way you carry your pain, in the way you move forward. Because here, you're not just watching content. You're growing through it. You're choosing peace over chaos, understanding over confusion, and calm over control. So go ahead, hit that button. Because your healing journey doesn't end here. It deepens. And this is where clarity begins.